Hello, my name is Jimmy Parvin. I'm a KPO specialist, and I'm going to share today the introduction to the 5S concept, which is part of our Leeds Improvement Method. We'd say it's one of the best tools, and it can really help you eliminate waste and improve your work environment. In many ways, 5S is a simple concept, yet it does have a great deal of depth. Take a look at this picture. What difficulties could you see with working in an office like this? Disorganisation is often a barrier to workflow and creates frustration for those trying to do the work. So, 5S is a strategy to keep our workplace safe, organised, and to visually manage a space. It can be applied to a clinical area, a storage area, a reception area, a digital area, anywhere really. "5S" was developed in Japan, and the term comes from 5 Japanese words that define the process: sort, simplify, sweep, standardise and self-discipline. There are other translations of these terms, but these are the ones we've adopted in the Leeds Improvement Method. We'd suggest it looks a little bit better now that some 5S has taken place. So following the 5 steps can result in a safe work area that's really conducive to productivity and efficient workflow. Have another look. Can you think of any further improvements you could make? As I mentioned, there are other applications of 5S besides physical spaces. We'll come back to that later. The KPO are currently working on 5S of their G Drive folders. In the Leeds Improvement Method, the word Gemba means where the work happens. Where on your Gemba could you apply 5S? Often, areas or items that cause you and your team frustration are a good place to start. Where is it that things are cluttered? Where is it you can't find what you need and have it close to hand? Here are some examples of the type of waste 5S can remove, although there are many more. For example, if you pause a task to look for something you need, how often can you return to the task without being interrupted? Does the disruption affect your concentration on the task? Hopefully you can identify opportunities to eliminate waste using 5S on your Gemba. The first phase is sort, where you need to separate the necessary from the unnecessary. This must be done before anything else. During the sort phase, you're going to sort what you need from what you don't, objectively looking at all resources in the area you have defined in 5S. This process may also identify items that are necessary but you don't have available, and you'll need to order those or move them in from elsewhere. It's important to eliminate things that are not needed too, creating valuable space for the team working in the area. Having items that are not used can make it difficult for staff to do their work efficiently. Remember too that your unnecessary items may be valuable elsewhere. You can also use this step when dealing with information and data. Get rid of it if it's not needed. Just remember, if you're unsure on the trust policy for managing your data, get some advice from information governance team before you delete it. 5S isn't something you can do on your own. It's a team sport. Make sure you define the boundaries of the area you want to work on, and then gather a team of people who have an investment in improving that area. Explain the reason why you want to do 5S and get people on board. Data can be helpful to demonstrate the waste that's getting in the way of making work frustrating. Perhaps you can describe the impact on your patients or your customers too. Don't forget to take a before picture to look back at once you've made some improvement. As a team, decide what's necessary now, what may be necessary in the future, and what's unnecessary. Put a visual cue, a red tag, on anything you think you might be able to remove. Make sure anyone who may use these items has a chance to check before they're taken away. The next of the S's is simplify. Once you've sorted, you can simplify what's left over to make places for necessary items. The burden of work can be greatly reduced for staff if everything in the work area is properly organised. Simplify includes putting equipment at point of use, labelling cabinets and items so that anyone can find a supply quickly and easily. It also means that you can notice if items are missing at a glance. Remember, each of the 5S steps must happen in order. You can't simplify unless you've sorted. During the sort phase, you may have identified items that are necessary, but that you have in excessive quantities. Although it's better to have one too many rather than one too few, holding excessive amounts of any item can lead to waste. Excessive inventory means items can go out of date more easily and are superseded before they are used. Need to establish more space and more time to organise. To avoid this waste, you'll need to establish the par level, the ideal amount of each item to have to hand. This will be based on the number of items you use each day. You may also have to consider the replenishment of your supplies, as the amount you need to hand is also linked to the time it takes to get more. If you're not sure on your par levels, you could collect data to be better informed. It's natural to be concerned about running out of supplies, so it's okay to be cautious until you can be confident on the par level for each item. Make it visual. Once your team have agreed the best place for each item, make sure it's clear for anyone to know that things belong. Use a visual map. This one, used in the printing room at Trusted Quarters, helps the 5S team with the next stage, sweep. Asking a colleague less familiar with the area to find an item is a great way to test your improvement. Sweep. Phase 3 is to agree a way to sweep the area to ensure everything is returned to its proper place and that nothing unnecessary has arrived. Sweep is a form of inspection, and it's important to maintain the system of organisation you put in place. Sweeping is not about clearing up after others, but should identify issues with the area swiftly. Sweep allows for minor corrections, avoiding the need for big clean-up events. Sweeping should be quick and visual task, ensuring that everything is correctly located and in the correct amount, the par level. Depending on the area being swept, the sweep could also involve replacing missing items, wiping down surfaces and/or restocking supplies. Remember, we can't sweep until we've sorted and simplified the area. Also, areas with the most effective sort and simplify will make for an easy sweep. Shadow boards. Shadow boards are a quick and easy way of knowing if everything is where it belongs and should prompt people to return things. Many surgical areas have used this tool to help with setup reduction, another Leeds Improvement Method tool. You'd be amazed at how effective a simple picture of a pair of scissors on the workbench can be, acting as a prompt to colleagues so they get replaced rather than carried away in someone's pocket. Sweep rota. As with the earlier steps, it shouldn't just be one person's responsibility to sweep the workspace. Use your 5S team and anyone else who's interested to create a rota and decide between you how often the sweep is required. Make the rota and the duties for each sweep visible and clear. This includes being clear on the expectation of those participating to either correct problems or escalate concerns. Phase 4, standardise. This step involves creating a standard agreement and communicating it to the team. It's critical to ensure we can maintain and build on our improvement. It also provides a framework for supportive and fair accountability. Standardising allows a team to create a set of agreed local guidelines to help maintain the organisation of their space. It covers questions such as what belongs in an area and what does not. What do we do with items that do not belong? How do we know who's responsible for sweeping? What do we do if problems arise? The agreement should answer all of these questions and define the standard expected and who is responsible for what. The team agreement should be a dynamic document that adapts in response to the changing needs of the team and the space that you're running with your 5S. If you can, try to have at least a draft version written and agreed before your launch of your sweep rota. As with other stages of 5S, this one can't begin until the previous ones are in place. You'll need a reliable sweep on which to base your team agreement. A team agreement is crucial for the success of your 5S project. Work with your 5S team to create a clearly defined agreement. Think about providing a supplies list and a map of the room to help everyone adapt to the new way of doing things. It'll also help any guests that come to your area too. Consider using screenshots if you're working in a digital space. The final phase of 5S is self-discipline. Maintaining the standards set through training, empowerment and commitment. Self-discipline. What does this really mean to you? Teams must decide for themselves how to best ensure that 5S gains are held. This may be the most difficult 5S to maintain, and it will come over time if you strive for consistency and repetition. Think about the sorts of questions you might need to ask to ensure standards are maintained. In particular, how will you track defects and get to root cause of any issues that arise? How will you then invite and test ideas for further improvement? Are leaders involved in a regular review of your 5S work? Measurement. The 5S levels of achievement grid will help you to understand where you are now and identify what steps to take next, as well as to monitor progress. Start at level 1 and don't start the next level until you've achieved all the elements. Don't worry if it takes a while to move up. There can often be a significant amount of work to get to level 2 for even the most modest 5S projects. To analyse your 5S area in more depth, you could use the 5S audit tool, which is available in the Leeds Improvement Method folder on the Trust G drive. Digital 5S. For those of you taking on the challenge of applying 5S to a digital workspace, there's an alternate level of achievement grid that looks like this. So that covers the main principles of the 5S tool. So now you can make a start. Don't forget, the scope of your work should be agreed with your team and line manager. Will you begin with one room, one cupboard, just one drawer? It's probably going to depend on the time you and the team can protect to focus on your 5S project, as well as potentially the impact it can have for your team and your patients or customers. We'd really encourage you to start small and then scale up using your learning. Here are a few examples of other 5S projects around the Trust for a little inspiration. Before you go, here's a challenge for you. From what you've seen already, which 5X principles might you add to improve this situation? How did you do? What about labels on the shelf to make it clear where each item belongs? You could introduce a sticker or a card at a set level, the par level you agreed as a team, as a reminder to reorder. This is called a Kanban. If you thought about checking the team agreement, looking for a visual map, and reviewing if a sweep rota is being followed, you can have a few extra points. By the way, this is still a great start for 5S. Remember the levels of achievement? The most important thing is to start. In case there are a few terms during this session you weren't sure of, there's a glossary to refer to. Thanks for watching. You can follow the KPO team on Twitter or watch some of our videos on the Leeds Improvement Method via our YouTube channel.